And thanks, Ron. Okay, it's all right. Yeah. Did it go off? Okay. All right. Okay. Is this on? Okay. Yeah. All right. So you have su graphes, right? And again, so that you don't need that personal pronoun su. You could just say graphes, and in Greek, we're going to learn how that's going to show that it's there's a subject there, which is you. Okay. So any questions about just English grammar and some of this review here? Hopefully, it's pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Anything for English grammar? All right. So let's step into the meat here, which is chapter 6. And we're going to learn about the first 2 cases. There's 4 cases in Greek, and we're going to learn the first 2, which are the nominative and the accusative case. So how is a Greek noun constructed? What are the forms of a Greek noun? There's 2 parts to a noun. You have a stem, and the stem of a word is going to carry, that's where all the meaning comes from. Okay, the meaning of the word comes from the stem. And then you have the other part, which is the case ending. Okay, so you have the stem, and then the case ending, that's going to determine the function. Once you add this ending, it's going to determine the role of a noun in a sentence. So I have an example here. It's apostolos, which again, it means messenger or sent one. And here you notice the stem would be apostola, right, ending with that omicron. That would carry the meaning of the word, apostle. And then that case ending would be the sigma. So notice there's a sigma at the end of apostolos, and that's the case ending. It determines the function of that word. And so here it's going to tell us that it's in the nominative, it's a masculine word, and it's a singular word as well. Okay. So some of the uses of case endings, again, the first is function, right? The function of a word is determined, again, by the case ending, not by word order. So that's, we got to emphasize that a lot, right? Word order it's important in Greek, but it doesn't determine a subject or an object. So normally in English, right, how do we write a sentence? It's subject, verb, object. In Greek, that doesn't matter. It could be verb, subject, object. It could be object, subject, verb. You could switch it around any way. And the only way you're going to know if something's a subject or an object is by what? Case endings. Okay, case endings. Very good. So case endings are going to determine the function. And so I gave you an example here, again, apostolos. So if you notice, there's that case ending. The first one would be the subject, apostolos. That's in the nominative case. And then apostolon, with that noun at the end, that case ending is going to show that it's a direct object. And then as well, case endings determine number. So another example, apostolos, that would be a singular noun. And then apostoloi, if you want to change it to be a plural, it would be apostoloi. All right. And then third, case ending can determine its gender. And so same idea, apostolos, that is a masculine noun. And then hora is a feminine noun because of that case ending there. Okay. And then finally, case ending determines its declension. And so in your notes, Mounce writes in his book, declension, the pattern of a word follows does not affect its meaning, only its form. Okay, so again, we talked about declension. Declension is a pattern of how a word changes, right, of how a word inflects. And so you're going to see a bunch of changes in Greek from one case to another. Okay, so you're going to have all of these changes, and these patterns, again, they don't change the actual stem, right? The stem stays the same. The meaning of that word stays the same. It's just going to help us to see this pattern of how it changes. So you have 3 declensions in Greek, and the third declension we're not going to learn until much later. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But the first declension are words with stems ending in alpha or eta, right? Alpha or eta. And then you have the second declension, which are words with stems ending in omicron. And then finally, the third declension are stems ending in a consonant. And the third declension is a little bit more complex in terms of how words change. So we're just going to look at the first and the second declension. Now, if you are looking at Mounts, if you have your books with you, you'll notice that the way he charts the declensions is 2, 1, 2. Do you guys see that? Have you guys seen that before? Okay, so it's 2, 1, 2. And he's basically saying that masculine words are the second declension, feminine words are in the first declension, and then neuter words are also in the second declension, and they follow certain patterns. Okay, and the easiest way is, well, we'll get to the charts, but we'll look at those charts, and we'll kind of see how things change. But let's go to the nominative first, nominative and accusative, and I'll explain this. So the nominative, all right, we have the nominative case, and the nominative is basically the subjective case in English. Okay, so it shows us that a word is the subject, and so a Greek writer or an author, as he's writing, as he's composing, he would be thinking, hey, look, I need to write about some subject. What am I going to do? Well, I'm thinking nominative, and he would add that sigma. He would add that case ending to put something in the nominative case. And so for us, right, as readers, what are we doing? Well, we're doing the opposite. Right? We're looking at the Greek, we're looking at a sentence. And so when we see that sigma, right, attached to the end of a stem, what are we thinking? Subject, right? We're thinking subject. It's in the subjective case. It's the nominative case. Okay, so there's that example here. Ha apostolos, pempe ton apostolon. So notice there, ha apostolos, that would be the subject. And why is that? Because there's a what? A sigma, okay? So very simple. There's a sigma attached to the end. And you have ton apostolon, and that would be we're going to learn now, the accusative case. Okay, so let's move to the accusative. And the accusative is the objective case in English. So it's the direct object of the sentence. And so an author would think this way. He's thinking, I need to put in a direct object, and so I'm going to put it in the accusative case, and that's determined by this letter noun. I'm going to put this noun, and I'm going to attach it to the end of a stem. And so again, for us, it's the opposite. You're looking at a sentence, you see that noun, and that's going to help us to remember that this is in the accusative, and the accusative is a direct object. So any questions just about what it's telling us, the nominative and accusative? Any questions? Okay. All right, pretty straightforward. Again, same example, right? Apostolon, that noun there is telling us that apostolon, that is the object of the sentence. And again, not the word order. So this sentence happens to be subject, verb, object. But this could have been, again, it could have been flipped. It could have been ton apostolon, pempe, ha apostolos. And it would mean the exact same thing. Or it could be ha apostolos, ton apostolon, pempe. And that would also mean the same thing, right? You have to identify a subject or an object simply by the case ending and not by the word order of a sentence. So that brings us to the chart. So you guys have that chart in front of you in your notes. And there's two charts. Okay, so the first chart is the chart which is just with the case endings. So notice, we look at some of those examples, and you see that sigma there, which tells us it's the nominative singular masculine. You have that noun there, which is telling us, right, it's nominative singular neuter. You also have all of those nouns there, which tell us accusative singular masculine, accusative singular feminine, accusative singular neuter. Okay. And right now it might be confusing to you because you're looking at this chart and you're like, I haven't memorized it. I don't know any of this, and it's all brand new. But once you memorize it and once you start looking at things, once you start looking at Greek sentences, it'll come a lot faster. But you do need to memorize both of these charts. So the first one again is just the case endings, and then the second one is a chart with the connecting vowel. Okay. And so if you guys remember, there's a stem. Every word has a stem. So apostolos, right, would be apostolaw. It would end with that omicron. And here it's just showing, right, with the omicron at the end of the stem, you have the end of the stem, the connecting vowel, and you have that case ending attached to it. Now, when you're memorizing this, I think the best way is memorize the chart with the connecting vowels, but then you should know the chart with just the case endings, right? That should be in the back of your head. Um, so a lot of times, if you're going to see a word, what you want to do is you want to be able to detach that that case ending from the stem. Okay. But if you're memorizing, again, just some hints on memorization. Memorize the chart with the connecting vowel. Okay. And the way to memorize it is memorize it horizontally, right? Memorize it across from left to right. Okay. Not from top to bottom. Or if you could do both, that'd be wonderful. But again, what you want to, right, the main thing you're looking for in Greek is mainly the case, right? So you want to know, the first thing you want to know when you're looking at a word, what case is it in? And that's why you're memorizing it, again, left to right. And so if you notice, for the chart with the connecting vowel, the very first horizontal line, that whole case there would be the nominative singular, right? All those endings are the nominative singular. So you're going to look at these endings, and right away, right, if you have omicron sigma, right away that should tell you that's nominative, singular, and it's a masculine word. Okay? And then same with that next line. If you see an eta, right, what is that? Well, it's nominative, singular, and it's what gender? Feminine. Okay? And then finally, if you see that alpha or on, which is omicron noon, that is nominative, singular, and what gender? Neuter. Okay? And on all the way down, and you should be able to recognize these as you memorize it. Okay? So just some hints to kind of figure this out. I know it's all fresh and new. And again, if you have questions, just go ahead and raise your hand. But some hints, masculine and feminine case endings are often identical. Okay. And in the nominative and the accusative, the neuter is going to be distinct from the masculine, right? As well, the neuter is very unique in that in the singular, both the nominative and accusative are the same, and in the plural, the nominative and the accusative are going to be the same. Okay. So how would you determine, right? If you're looking at this, you're looking at a neuter word, and you see those endings are the same, right? Nominative singular and accusative singular. Both of the case endings are noon. How would you determine if it's nominative or accusative? What do you guys think? Okay, close. That's good. You're kind of on the right track. You would look at the context. Okay, the context of it. All right. But the word itself, it could be either. It could be nominative or it could be accusative. So you want to look at other things in the sentence that are going to help you. Yeah, if you see another word, right, that's in the nominative, then what is it going to be? It's going to be accusative. So again, context. Okay, the full context of the sentence. All right. So any questions about just this chart as you're looking at it? I know it's going to take some time to memorize it, to ingrain it, to know it. Any questions about the chart? Yeah, Corinne. Yes, it will look like that with the connecting vowels. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's going to have the connecting vowels. The reason why we need to see just the case endings is because, especially when we get to the third declension, you're going to see that when a consonant attaches a case ending, there's going to be a change to that consonant. So you want to be able to recognize, oh, look, there was a change happened because I attached a case to the end of it. But don't worry about that for now. Just worry about, again, memorizing especially that chart with those connecting vowels, and then knowing what case ending you're adding to the stem. All right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. third declension. Yeah. Yeah, don't worry about the third declension for now. That's what I would say. Just memorize this and focus on this. And we'll explain that a little bit later. But just know this chart with the connecting vowel, memorize that, and then just be able to recognize, hey, look, there's a sigma. That's the case ending that I'm adding to a stem. All right. So there's 3 noun rules that you also have to memorize. There's actually, I think there's 6 of them. I believe that Mounts has in his book. Is it 6? Yeah, I think it's 6. But here's the first 3. And so just focus on these, and these all have to do with the nominative and the accusative. So rule number 1, if I could just have someone read that for us. Rule number 1. Volunteer to read rule number 1. Yeah, go ahead.
Stems ending in alpha or beta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second. And consonantal stems are in the third.
All right, so this is basically what we covered. Again, stems ending in alpha or eta, those are all in the first declension. All right, and then stems ending in omicron are in the second, and then we'll get to the third declension later, okay, which are consonantal stems. And then number 2, can I have a volunteer to read noun rule number 2?
Every neuter word has the same form as the nominative.
All right, so again, I kind of explained this. If you look at your chart, look at that, the neuter words. Notice nominative and accusative, it's going to have the same ending. Nominative and accusative singular, nominative, accusative plural. All of them are going to be the same, and it's going to be the context and other words in the sentence that will determine whether or not it's nominative or accusative. Okay, and then rule number 3. Nate, you want to read that?
Almost all neuter words
Okay, so if you see that alpha, what is it going to be? It's going to be either nominative plural or accusative plural for a neuter word. Okay, so those are just some helpful rules and tips that will help you to identify some of these endings. Yes.
So what is the DAT again under nominative, genitive? DAT is
Oh yeah. Okay. So there's 4 cases. So it's nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Dative. All right. So again, this chart will be full. So you'll learn the genitive, you'll learn the dative. But right now we're just focusing on the nominative and accusative. All right. So any questions about those 2 cases, nominative and accusative, and the charts? Sorry, can you repeat the question, Karina? I think that's just standard form of how people lay out the chart and how you memorize the chart. I've seen some people do like 2-2-1. I've always memorized it like this though, from Mounts pretty much. So I don't know why he puts it that way. But again, it's just a way of being able to see, masculine is in the second declension, neuters in the second declension, and then feminine would follow first declension endings. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on the endings, charts, nominative, accusative? Okay. So why don't we go to the definite article? And this will be pretty quick. I mean, definite article, it's going to look very similar to some of these case endings that we just talked about. Definite article is translated as the. In Greek, there is no indefinite article. So if something is indefinite, it would just not have a definite article. All right. Now, why is the definite article important? Well, the definite article is important because the article will always agree with its noun in case, number, and gender. And with these endings here, or with the definite article, there's no variation. Okay, it's always going to be the same. There's 24 forms, and if you can memorize these 24 forms, if you see the definite article, right, you can always know what a noun is, right? Because the definite article is going to tell you, and it's going to agree with the noun in terms of case, number, and gender. Okay, so The article is very important to memorize, and it's going to help you because, again, once you see that definite article, if you know all of these forms, you can find out the case, number, and gender of any noun in a sentence. So just looking at that chart, the first chart is just the definite article. So notice nominative singular is ha, he, ta. Right? That's the nominative singular definite article. And then the accusative, tan, tain, ta. Nominative plural would be hoi, hai, ta. And then accusative plural would be tus, tas, and ta. Okay. And then notice that next chart there that you have is simply a definite article with an example of a noun. All right. And it's as follows. Okay. So I think it's pretty straightforward. Any questions about the definite article and the endings and the nouns? Mm-hmm.
In the video, he gives 12, but he says it's 24. Is he referring to the second chart here, which is the video? Or was he talking
Ye-
about the genitive data that was listed?
Yeah, yeah. Right now we see 12 because we're only doing. Yeah, you're right. We're only looking at the nominative and accusative. Yes. Yeah, we will get to them. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, let's try. There's some exercises here. There's 7 exercises, and maybe what we can do is I'll have you guys kind of divide up. Maybe just go with 3 or 4 people around you, and just try to get through as many as you can. And we'll meet back in like a good, between maybe 10 minutes, and we'll review and go over them. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at. There's some verbs there, but he translates the verbs for you. Just look at the noun and try to determine its case, its number, and its gender. Okay, so pull out the noun, and you're going to determine the case, number, and gender. Okay, so maybe again, get with the people around you, and we'll spend a good 10 minutes or so looking through these exercises. All right.